Meet Mojo Pix, a Santa Monica-based startup that is hoping to change the way you deal with photos taken with your smartphone. It all starts with a great idea, and Mojo Pix has got that. Now they're looking for that big breakthrough that will take them to the next level.
Welcome to Concept to Code. Today we're talking about big data. Colin, big data, startups. You know, I think originally it was more focused towards enterprise companies, but Airbnb, some other startups have successfully used it and leveraged it. What questions do you have about big data?
Sure, Gary. My questions are really around how to best architect my solution now to take advantage of big data in the future. And the other thing I would really like to talk about is what are some of the tools that I want to educate myself on so that I'm prepared to take that step in the future.
Well, we have a perfect solution for you today. We have a professor from UCLA. And when we return, we're going to hear all about big data. Stay with us.
Welcome to Concept to Code, where you'll learn from the experts who are making Santa Monica a hotbed of technological innovation. Here to learn from our experts is Mojo Pix, a Santa Monica startup that wants to help you make the most of the photos you take with your phone. The experts are here. Mojo Pix is here. All on Concept to Code.
Today's topic is big data. When it comes to data, we all know that size does matter. But what is big data? To help us out, we have a rock star professor from UCLA today, Dr. Vandana Mangal. She's the Executive Director for the Eastern Technology Leadership Program and Research Director for Business and Information Technologies at UCLA Anderson School of Management. She's not only a teacher, she's also an author. Her books include A Global Study of Technology and Business Practice, Global Trends for Technology Adoption, and she's written articles for the International Journal of Engineering Management and Economics. She's a 4-time recipient of the UCLA Anderson School Local Award, and she earned her PhD in Technology Management and Information Systems from the Heinz School at Carnegie Mellon University. Her undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering from Punjab Engineering College. Please welcome our guest mentor, Dr. Vandana Mangal. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Mangal.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks.
I'm going to be talking about the business value of big data today. Starting with 20-odd years ago, when I was working in the computer services department of a large organization, I realized that computers were not realizing business value. Come to 2014, fast forward to 2014, today we've moved from, we have e-commerce, we have mobile, we have social, and we have the Internet of Things. So in addition to business data, we're also having consumers as well as machines generate data. Volumes of data have gone up. However, when this data is managed, analyzed, and predictions are made using this data, and decisions are based on these predictions accurately, there can be huge returns. President Obama's campaign, the 2012 campaign, is a prime example of this. So what is it that big data, what is big data, and where does it get us, and when should we use it? Moving to big data, it first came in 2001 from Meta Group, now Gartner, who came up with 3 V's of big data, which it is commonly used to define today. The 3 V's are volume. We've talked about how much the volume has gone up of the data that's generated today. There's also velocity, the speed with which the data is being generated today. And the third is variety. If we think of each of ourselves and the kind of data that we are generating and consuming today, it's varied. There's semi-structured and unstructured data that is generated by consumers as well as machines, and then there is the structured data from businesses. There's also textual, and in addition to video and other kinds of data. This diagram is from IBM, and some organizations also use a 4th V, which is value. So what I have done is come up with a big data framework. In my view, big data is not new. It has been around since the 1970s in various forms. And also, the framework that I have put together is a combination of two different fields: computer science, which entails the left-hand side boxes that you see there, which include data generation, data storage, data and data I guess, the last one there. And then on the left side, we have data analytics as well as business value, which come under the business and the information systems fields. I'm going to talk briefly about each of these. Data generation, if you think about data generation today, there are multiple sources from which data is generated. If we just talk about the banking application, that itself has multiple sources from which the data comes. There's the teller that you go talk to, there's the ATM, there's online, and multiple other sources. Moving on to the second element of the big data framework that I put up earlier, we have data storage. In data storage, what's traditionally been used or what has been used for the last few decades has been databases, and primarily relational databases. They are excellent for structured data, not so good for unstructured and semi-structured data. So new types of databases have been coming out, columnar databases, NoSQL, and in-memory databases. What I've also done at the bottom of the slide is put together put a picture of the emerging database landscape, which, as you can see, is highly complex. What I do want to take a minute or so to talk about is Hadoop. The reason I think it's important is it's become almost synonymous with big data today. It came out in 2003 when Google first came out with their framework for being able to solve these types of problems, the big data problems, how to address big data and how to get value from it, how to manage data, analyze it, make predictions, and then take actions based on data. Their framework essentially had two main components. First, big, scalable, and cheap storage. Second was parallel processing done very quickly. Doug Cutting at that time was also trying to solve a similar problem. He took what Google had come out with, built his own framework, and he named it Hadoop, which was the name of his son's toy elephant. I mentioned the two main components continue to be storage, big, scalable, and cheap, and the second component is parallel processing, done very fast. What I do want to mention here is what happened with Hadoop was in 2009 it became part of the Apache project, which is open source. So yes, you and I are able to download Hadoop and do our own big data implementations. However, it is difficult unless we are data scientists for us to be able to do these types of implementations. So different companies different organizations have come up that offered various types of distributions for solving this problem. So essentially, if you want to do a Hadoop implementation in your organization, you can go to an organization such as Cloudera or Hortonworks, or Microsoft Azure has a solution. Intel, Amazon Web Services are other examples of various Hadoop implementations. Fourth, data analytics. Analytics is used to analyze the data, various tools available out there. One component of that is visualization. What's happening is with big data, either it's a large organization where you have several technical people on your team, and they are the people who are going to be analyzing the data and presenting it to the users of the data. If you're a small organization or if you're a division of a large organization, you may be the business user who is going to be using and analyzing this data, in which case data visualization comes in very handy. What I have on this slide are data visualizations that I've picked up, which have been generated using 3 different tools, and all 3 of these are free. They are available for you and I to be able to use and generate or create our own data visualizations. Data visualization is nothing but an image, and you and I will both agree that an image speaks much louder than words. So what organizations need to do if your organization is planning to do, wants to get business value from their data, what you need to do? Well, the first thing that I would recommend doing is figure out what your business case is. What is it that you want your data to get out what you want to get out of your data. So is it, if you're a large production company, do you want to figure out why are my products not selling? Or if you're a startup, do you want to figure out who your customers are? Once you figure that out, you can go through the framework starting with data generation, data storage, so on and so forth, to be able to come up with your own big data solution. The last slide, expected benefits from big data, and I'd like to leave you with an example. This comes from a paper by McAfee and Brynjolfsson, who talk about Sears Holding, who realized a few years ago that they were generating a lot of data on their customers and their products, and what they wanted to do was to be able to offer certain types of campaigns and offer to their customers customized offerings. To be able to do so, they realized that their campaigns took about 8 weeks or so to generate, and that was sometimes a little bit long. By doing a Hadoop implementation, what they were able to do was cut that time down to 1 week, and therefore able to customize their offerings to their customers. When you look at that example and look at the factors on this slide, you'll be able to align several of those with the expected benefits from big data. Thank you.
Dr. Mangal, thank you very much for that informative presentation on big data. When we return, we're going to have a sit and chat with our startup, Mojo Pix, and talk big data. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Santa Monica is in a perpetual state of innovation. At the center of it all is the entrepreneur, giving to the ecosystem and being fueled by it. But what exactly fuels the entrepreneur?
The reason why we moved to Santa Monica was to get access to the great talent pool that is in the city.
What inspires us is the weather, the ocean, the people, and the city itself.
Both Mitch and I like to surf every morning.
A great way to start the day.
One of my favorite things to do, come out here, bring my laptop, connect to what is a choice Wi-Fi connection.
I am one of the few lucky people I know that gets to ride my bike to the office.
The city is always finding new and innovative ways to make it an incredible place to both live and work in.
It's great to be in the middle of that action and being able to just tap into what Santa Monica has to offer.
I am the admissions manager for General Assembly.
I work for a local company, Lionsgate Entertainment.
I'm the Santa Monica's Youth Technology Program Coordinator.
I'm the IT manager for the Lowe's Santa Monica Beach Hotel.
I'm the COO and co-founder of Callfire.
I'm the founder of Favorite.
I'm the founder of Down to Earth Media.
We are a tech company. Our internet connection is very important to us.
And CityNet was really crucial in our initial growth.
And a rock-solid service, one of our top providers for connectivity.
The internet's not affected at all. We have great gigabit speed. We bring 30 or more students to these co-working spaces.
And they have come through with speeds that throw all their competition in the dust.
Seeing the evolution of a startup, implementing a new idea that's going to have a positive impact on society, it never gets old.
Mojo Pix is a Santa Monica startup that is going to change the way you use the photos you take with your phone. They are here today on Concept to Code to listen and learn from the experts about how to take their next big step forward.
Welcome back. Today we're talking big data. Dr. Mangal, me, Colin Vincent, founder of Mojo Pix.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
So, my first question here is that originally when big data was evolving, and I saw it, I read a few white papers about it, it was all geared towards enterprise applications, right? And now it seems that it's more of a focus on scalable solutions for startups. But has Fortune 500 companies, have they really embraced big data yet?
So some of the research that we've done at UCLA, which looked at CIOs and how the adoption of technology has impacted business practices, one of our key findings was that whenever there's a new technology, there's a lag between the hype phase when the new technology comes out and the actual adoption of technology. We're seeing that in big data as well. So in 2012, when we looked at some of the reports and the findings that came out, we found that there were some organizations, about 25 to 30%, that had done some big data projects. There were others, about 85% or so, that were in the process of, they were thinking about big data projects. When we pick up a report today, there's a couple there. There's one that has looked at Fortune 1000 companies, and we know that there is a correlation between the size of the company and between the big data adoption. The larger the company, the more the chance of big data adoption, at least at some level. What we are seeing is that now the numbers are close to 60%. In terms of big data adoption projects. And also, even for medium-sized organizations, the numbers have been going up. They're nowhere close to the large organizations, but they are about 39 to 40% or so.
So should a startup, what does this say about a startup's adoption of big data? Should they follow that trend, or does that have any impact on whether startups adopt, do you think?
Startups are also like large corporations and then medium-sized corporations. For startups, there's also rationale for adopting big data or more analytics. And the rationale for that is, if as a startup you have come up with an app idea and you've started your own organization, you want to be able to figure out what is it that my customers are looking for, what kinds of prices can I be selling my products at? What types of functions or features of my products my startups are interested, my customers are interested in looking at, and to be able to figure out some of these types of things, it would be worthwhile for an organization to look at various types of solutions that are available out there today.
Okay, and is this momentum in big data, is it technology driven, or is it an overall movement, do you think, that's just becoming aware?
A lot of it comes from the business end of things. It's a combination of technology and business, but technology is not the primary driver of adoption of any new technology. It generally comes from, I have a problem and it needs to be solved. So it usually comes from the business perspective. Now, I do want to also address your earlier question with one more thing, which I think is important for anybody who's thinking of a big data solution today to know, and that is, although the adoption rates for big data are going up steadily for all types of organizations, there are still some issues that are holding it back. One of those big issues is security and data privacy, and that's especially important with the recent problems that we've seen in the industry with major organizations having data breaches and have lost their data. The other issue also is there are so many technologies and so many solutions available today. As we were chatting earlier, we were saying each time we look around, there's a new solution, there's a new vendor, and for somebody who's trying to come up with a solution, it's hard for them to determine which vendor should I go with, what solution is the right one for me. If somebody is able to offer an integrated solution, an end-to-end solution, a lot more organizations may have solutions to their big data problems.
Got it. And so to segue into Colin's questions that he has, I mean, big data related to startup applications, is there any specific areas that you think would be beneficial for startups with big data?
So Colin has Mojo Pix is your application, and one of the first things you probably want to be doing is understanding who your customer is and what your customers are looking for, how much can you sell your product for, and how is it location based? Do you want to address things differently? There are multiple tools that are available for analytics today. When we look at tools, they can be divided into three main components. One is data management, which is where you collect all the data, clean it out, bring it into a standard format, that can then be used for the second step, which is data discovery. So you want to be able to take this data and you want to be able to analyze it. You want to be able to understand, does it have any trends or patterns, some questions that you had not even thought about asking. You want to be able to look at historical data and make predictions for risks and opportunities based on that. And then that leads us to the third step, which is reporting. You've got all this analytics. Now you want to be able to report it. You can either use standard reports, or there are other ways like data visualizations, which especially as users are becoming more business users, especially for a startup. As the founder of a startup, being also the business head, the business user, you may be able to take away more with a data visual as opposed to a table with a lot of numbers. With all these being available and which tools you still need to go with, it'll depend upon what your needs are. If you as the business user are going to be using these, you may want something that has more of the reporting, that's stronger on the reporting, with somewhat light data discovery or data analytics component. You may or may not need the data management component depending upon how much data you have.
Great. That's very helpful.
And did you have any questions about tools or any specific?
I think my question is what's the best way to architect the app and this where I am in this stage, in this early stage, to take advantage of big data in the future?
To be able to make any big data decision, I would recommend going through the framework that I put together in my presentation, essentially trying to figure out what is it that you want out of it, and then going and looking at what are the various technologies that are available and following it step by step, bringing the stakeholders, so on and so forth. A couple with an app that I'd like to bring up, and we've talked about them before, are Mixpanel and Google Analytics, which are two tools that are available today. They both offer great analytics. Again, it depends upon what your need is. One, Mixpanel is very user-friendly. As the business user, you may find its user interface good to use. It is, however, very event-driven. So if that's what you need, then it would be the right choice for you. If you're looking, on the other hand, to be able to understand more about pages and how many visitors come to your pages, about your site, about the links on your pages, then Google Analytics may be a better choice for you. Google Analytics is much more complex, much less user-friendly. So that's a decision one needs to make if one wants to invest the time with that. That said, it also offers more functionality. So if you have the resources to be able to do that, then Google Analytics could be a good choice. Otherwise, Mixpanel is a choice that could potentially work.
Great.
So you talked in your presentation about having a data scientist, and I read an article, I think, a few days ago from Wall Street Journal. There's a lack of that, and that being a great job in the future. And then there's big data officers and things like that, or chief data officers out there. Now, for a startup, obviously, if you get a technical co-founder and someone that can code, I think that's great. But, I mean, for someone that's looking into that, or is there anything that I think a founder could do to maybe groom that, or what should they look for in someone that would assume that role if they're not able to just snag a data scientist from the launch? Is there anything that they should look for in selection of that position for their company?
So in the early days of big data, I'd attended a conference in the Silicon Valley, and one of the big conversations there was a data scientist is as rare as a unicorn. And I do agree with that. For large organizations, data scientists do make sense. For startups, depending upon your need, you may want to go with one of the analytics tools and not need to be able to get a data scientist on board.
Well, that's great. Dr. Mangal, thank you very much for joining us today. Colin Vincent, Mojo Pix, once again. Now, Colin, for viewers, now, are you at the App Store? You're going to be in the App Store soon? How can viewers look at your app and download it?
Sure, so we'll be in the App Store soon, but the best way to check it out now is to go to mojopix.com. That's MOJOPICS.com, and register for an invite, and we'll send you an invite when we get ready.
Sounds great. Looking forward to downloading that. Thank you again for joining us with Concept to Code, and we'll see you next time.